Huh? Okay, so I was asked to speak today. By the way, you can submit requests for anything you want to be spoken about. A person who did the polling, I think, polled exactly 3 people. I think only one of which is here today.
Polled 4.
4. Are any of them here besides you?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's good. Okay, so he wanted to speak about the difference between Minhag and Halacha, if I understood correctly. Yes? Yeah. So it's the problem is that there is no hard and fast rule to differentiate between Minhag and Halacha. I want to give you an example. Many years ago, I was speaking to Rabbi Ohr Somayach, who was a great Gadol B'Torah, lived in Chicago. I was learning in his yeshiva at the time. And we were talking about the sugya of Aver Lishma, doing a sin for the sake of heaven. And I said that there's some people who say that taking money to learn Torah, such as in Kollel or to be a Rebbe, is a kind of Aver Lishma. Right? It's a kind of a sin for the sake of heaven. Because you're really not supposed to take money to learn Torah. So if you take money, it's kind of a sin, right? And I said, the Rambam writes that it's also to take money to learn Torah. It's forbidden. So he disagreed with me. He said that really, the concept of Aver Lishma, a sin for the sake of heaven, is very, very limited, if it's applicable at all, and certainly only in specific cases. And even though the Rambam says it's also to take money to learn Torah, what he really means with the word also, which normally we understand mean forbidden, means that it is a very, very bad thing, but not that it's forbidden. Okay, now this one opened up an extraordinary avenue, I should say Pandora's box, of approach towards halacha. Because if you know that when the Rambam or the Shulchan Aruch says asur, it doesn't really mean asur. It's forbidden. It doesn't mean forbidden. It just means not recommended. So then, how do you know what's forbidden, what's actually forbidden and what's not forbidden? Yes.
I don't think they're taking it. I think people are paying them. It's not like, oh, okay, I want to learn Torah, so pay me. They're getting money. They're receiving the money. They're not taking it.
That's a nice way of looking at it. But the Rambam would hold that. Rambam would hold that if you're getting a paycheck for learning Torah, it doesn't matter that people are giving to you of their own volition. Okay, that won't make a difference from his perspective. Okay. You're right, but that's not that there is such a distinction. But the Rambam, it won't make a difference from the Rambam's perspective. The Rambam will agree that if you're an individual and somebody comes and decides to support you out of his own pocket, so that's not a problem. He's talking about we're taking public money, charitable funds, for the purpose of
define charitable funds.
Well, money from the public as opposed to money from a private arrangement that you have.
Money from the public,
as opposed to a private arrangement you have with an individual. You know, we have. I'll explain.
Multiple people.
Yeah, so in private individuals, he suffers vuln, right? I do the work. I support you in learning, right? Charitable funds is where there's a community chest where money is being collected for community purposes, and that money is then given to people to learn Torah. That the Rambam holds is inappropriate. Or if a person is being is being paid to teach Torah.
But what's the difference between it being one person and multiple people if they're all agreeing for the same cause? Because
it's considered to be a Chil Hashem when it's by the Rambam. It's considered to be a Chil Hashem when people in a community is doing it.
So would 2 people doing this be a Chil Hashem?
I don't know what the borderline is. You're asking me again a question where there's no hard and fast line. Okay, but there is. At some point, the Rambam holds obviously it's going to be a Chil Hashem. So, what was I thinking what I was about to say before that? So we don't. It's hard to know what's usher actually, what's forbidden actually, and what's just recommended behavior. So, for example, if you went to most Hasidic communities, they would tell you that payas is halacha. To have long, payas coming down off the side of your head, that's halacha, and we don't believe that's halacha. We believe that if anything, it's a minhag, but not halacha. if you go to Hasidic communities again, they'll tell you that Chol Yisrael is halacha. Again, you go to other communities, they'll tell you Chol Yisrael is not halacha. So it's hard. There is no general principle. But what?
Touching all the sensitive ones.
Oh, what ones?
Touching all the sensitive points.
Sensitive points. There is no. If you go to a brisker community, they'll tell you that you have to keep chadash. You can't. You have to eat yoshan, grain from last year. You can't eat new grain. And they'll tell the Rabban Soloveitchik himself. He would not. Whenever he would have Sada Kedusha, whenever he would perform the marriage, he would bring his own witnesses with him. Because he wouldn't trust, the witnesses mostly at the hall didn't keep chadash. Most of us don't keep chadash. Most of us eat new grain before the second day of Pesach. So therefore he held, we're all pasul le'edus. We're all invalid witnesses because we consistently transgress a negative command. Right?
Not the Mason.
What do you mean b'mezid? Of course it's b'mezid.
No, they don't.
You're deliberately not transgressing a Torah command. The Torah says, don't eat chodesh, you're eating chodesh. You're following rabbis. You can say, well, I'm following rabbis. So they'll tell you, you're following rabbis who are wrong.
Isn't there a snake cycle?
It doesn't, whatever heter you come up with, they've thought of and rejected. Okay? So there are many heterim, but they rejected them. There are other people who will not, Hasidic people will not take somebody who's clean-shaven as a witness and for a kiddushin because they transgress the prohibition of using a razor, even if they're actually not using a razor. So there are many areas in which some people it's regarded as halacha, other people regard it maybe as a chumra, maybe not even as that. So when it comes to determining what's halacha, what's not, it's very difficult to do. And every society is going to have different standards. From the perspective of my perspective, let's say, I would say that my perspective is that something which most people adhere to, and is something which is supported by many rabbis, that's considered to be baseline halacha. Anything above that is a chumra. Anything below that is a kula. Let me explain. The baseline halacha is where most rabbinic authorities agree this is I should say it's a weighted majority, but it's a substantial amount of rabbinic authorities agree this is what you should be doing, and most people do this. A leniency, a kula, is when a minority of authorities hold that way, and therefore it's only appropriate to do if you're up the creek. If you have there are several such conditions in halacha. Shas Adchak, right? There's oppressive conditions. Oneg Shabbos, your Shabbos meal is in jeopardy. Hefsei Merubah, there's a possibility of a great loss. In those cases, we follow leniencies. On the other hand, something where, again, a minority of rabbis, but a significant minority of rabbis hold that this one should be stringent, so that's considered to be a chumra. So we have the baseline, kula, and chumra. Okay? So that baseline, that center of gravity, again, as I said, it's going to be different from community to community. You're never going to have a specific baseline which everybody agrees is the baseline. Okay?
Starting to sound like a family now.
Yeah.
Where did they get that Payas is halacha?
What do you mean?
Why do they claim Payas?
They hold that payas is up here. That this is your payah, and this has to be uncut. We all payas is down here.
So you're not allowed to cut Payas. So if they hold it up here, then it makes sense that they cut it. Huh?
What's the question?
So you could trim it, right? So
What?
you trim it, I thought it was that you could trim it, and we just tend to trim it really close.
No, we all the payas are down here. And here you're not supposed to cut it back. They hold payas are up here.
So then they should say that we are like.
I should make this clear. We're talking about not the prohibition of pasa zakon. That's a different issue. We're talking about hakafa, sort of hakafa, right? Of having a rounded head, right? So we hold this a round head is only if you have you shave off the hair over here, right? They hold this around the head as if you shave off the hair over here. Okay? So that's that is their perspective. And it's said about the Chidush Arim, one of the Rebbes, that there was a decree by the government in Poland in the mid-1800s that Hasidim had to cut off their payas and cut off their beards, and the Ger Rebbe is supposed to say it's Yehorik Bal Yavor. You better to be killed than to actually cut off your beard and payas. So obviously for them that was considered to be a very, very stringent halacha. I mean, the halacha that was very firmly halachically grounded. Now it's interesting because it does say, it's not necessarily so, because it does say in the Gemara that at a time when the non-Jews are determined to try and convert you or take you away from religion, then even on a minhag you have to give your life. And one gives the example of shoelaces. Jews wore black shoelaces, non-Jews wore red shoelaces. If the goyim are forcing you to wear red shoelaces, you have to give up your life rather than change your shoelaces. But that's only if it's so it's possible that the Rebbe thought it was a shas hashmad. It was trying to get us to leave our religion. So therefore, you have to be stringent even on a minhag. It's possible, but normally it seems that this is actually halacha from their perspective. Now, there are other things which are gray areas. For example, how long you wait between meat and milk, right? Between meat and milk, the Gemara itself holds, you wash out your mouth, wait maximum a half an hour, and then you can eat milk. And yet the Minhag in Am Yisrael has become very, very strong that we don't wait that short a time. Even the Dutch, who have the shortest wait on record, they still wait an hour. So the question is, that type of minhag, how close is it to full halacha? It's not at the Rabbanon. It doesn't appear in the Gemara that's such a psak. It's a minhag, but it's a very powerful minhag. And it's an important thing to understand, that they're weighted values of minhagim. Some people have a minhag that on Shabbos, they only wear white shirts. That's not the same level of minhag as the minhag of waiting 6 hours between milk and meat, right? There are meat and milk. There are gradations in minhag. There are even gradations in the Rabbanans. I had a Rosh Hashiva who said once to us that he had to fire a Rebbe, because the Rebbe was teaching there's no difference between the prohibition of oaf b'cholav, eating chicken with milk, and which shoelace you tie first in the morning when you put in your shoes. They're both the Rabbanans. Right? This is the Rabbanan, this is the Rabbanan. So what difference is there between the two? So you have to teach them with the same level of severity, which we all know intuitively is not the case. That obviously tying shoes is not as severe halacha as having chicken with milk. Okay? So even in the Rabbanans, and of course in the Raisas we have that as well, but in the Raisas it's clear cut, which are more severe prohibitions, because generally speaking, they have more severe penalties. When you get to the Rabbanans, already there are relatively few penalties, which are involved. Sometimes, in rare occasions, Chazal decreed makas marvus. They said you should get flogged with the Rabbanan, but those are rare. And when you get to Minhagim, certainly there are no penalties whatsoever. Therefore, you cannot judge.
Wait, yeah, there is.
There is.
Penalty.
Yeah, shkoyach. So you cannot judge, but that's not a social penalty, since they're so relative and
very harsh.
fluid. So therefore, you can't judge the severity of halacha. In other words, in certain societies, it's okay if you steal from the goyim, but it's not okay if you don't wear a white shirt. So the social ostracism actually applies more to the white shirts than it does to the stealing. So that doesn't tell us that white shirts are more severe than stealing, right? I hope not. Okay? So So it's hard to give, as I said, I'm constantly coming back to the same thing because that's the way it is. It's hard to give a specific scale of measure to say which minhag, in which location, in which society is more significant than other minhagim. But generally speaking, a minhag which is accepted by an entire tzibur in Am Yisrael, and the way we define entire tzibur today is basically Ashkenazim, Sfardim, or Teimanim, Chabad, Satmar. There are large groups and communities. And the larger the group of community, the more severe the minhag. Now, another example of that is Chen Rabbeinu Gershom. Chen Rabbeinu Gershom, the Chen Rabbeinu Gershom are prohibitions Rabbeinu Gershom ostensibly imposed on Ashkenazi, on Jewry, I should say, in around the year 1000. And there's several of them. There's a few of them famous, many of them are not so famous. So, the most famous one is not to marry two wives. Right? And we know only Ashkenazim accepted that custom. The other one, another famous one, is not to read other people's letters. And that, the Sephardim were willing to accept as well. So, their priorities. So the question is, again, if you transgress the Chaim Rabbeinu Gershom, what is your penalty and what are you doing wrong? So, a cherem, the word cherem in itself means that if you commit this avera, you're an automatic excommunication. Right? If you do this, it's not avera, right? It's a long term. If you commit this, commit the act inappropriately, you are an automatic excommunication, which means people shouldn't do business with you, people shouldn't send your foramos, people should shun you in shul, and so on and so forth. But
Like halachic death.
what? It's not, but it's not. That's the thing. Haramim today are notoriously ineffective because if one shul doesn't let you in, another will. Right. So just like Haramim are ineffective today, it's not clear how effective they were back then either. People usually the cherem kilos means that a certain kilo imposes a cherem, and then if that kilo means you have to leave that kilo and go to another kilo. But it's not necessarily, it wasn't necessarily universally effective back then, and it's not universally wouldn't be universally effective today. But somehow Am Yisrael has come to the conclusion that these minhagim, I call them minhag, even though they're called haramim, because obviously not everybody accepted them, right? So therefore, these minhagim are very powerful minhagim, and therefore they're things which are very strongly entrenched, and we would consider it to be highly appropriate for you to go against them. Yes?
Isn't that true with their opponents also? Like if people didn't accept their opponent, then it kind of doesn't apply.
Yes. There's a tshuva of Rav Moshe Feinstein, I quote all the time, a very radical tshuva which could undermine all of Judaism if it was, if people put it out into, exercised it, which he says that there's a prohibition in the Gemara that you are not allowed to clap and dance on Shabbos. And many people, certainly Hasidim, clap and dance on Shabbos. So what are we supposed to do with this discrepancy? So Moshe says that the principle is that Chazal make a gzeira, but the masses refuse to accept that decree. Then the decree should be annulled. And the famous example is Shemen Akum, or olive oil of non-Jews. They Daniel already tried to make it in his time such a decree, and eventually Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya came along and said, it never took hold, forget it, it's null and void. So Moshe's chiddush is that you don't need another beis din to certify that. If you notice that the Rabbanan, even if it once was in play, but over the years has become disregarded, so then that the Rabbanan falls off.
And the same thing with, I think, like...
Wait a second. That's very dangerous?
Yeah.
Because you want to eliminate Yom Tov Sheni, maybe we can start a movement and say, okay, we're not going to keep Yom Tov Sheni, and then Yom Tov Sheni falls off. So it's not clear you can do it deliberately, go ahead and do it, but according to Rav Moshe, yes, there's many Dinim Rabbanan could actually fall by the wayside, yes.
I remember this case, I think it was that Chazal banned musical instruments after the Chumra by Sheni, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's like Teimanim are the only ones who traditionally kept that. All of us.
In Yerushalayim they keep it.
Yeah?
Yerushalayim, in the old city, certainly, but even the new city, many people only have drums at their wedding. But yeah,
I'm saying, like, here you see that some people in
Right.
Israel keep it, but the majority do not.
Right.
So
Yes.
In this case, doesn't the objectivity of Halacha in general, if you apply this, then the objectivity of Halacha in general goes by the wayside.
Right.
So then that's kind of a problem.
Why is it a problem?
I mean, how do you order and structure halacha then?
So that you have to figure out who you're going to follow, what you're going to follow. That's why it's important to have either a sefer or a rabbi to follow. Either one is appropriate. But what's bothering you?
That leaves a lot of things up to discretion then. Like, how do you find objective truth when everything is subjective?
Objective does not do with truth. Halacha does not do with truth.
Well, I mean, in regards to the way you guide your life, there is some sense of emes there.
No.
No? Okay.
No.
All right.
I mean,
Torah is emes. Halacha is not emes.
it's like the spiritual effects of what you do. It's
Oh, but
whether
not necessarily. In other words, yes, you can look at it esoterically and say that once Klal Yisrael is makabel upon itself a certain mitzvah, so then it becomes a holy thing even in Shemayim.
There you go.
But that's not because of the emes. That's because Klal Yisrael accepted it. Okay, emes in Torah is specifically what the sheet. Well, let me. Emes is a much greater body of knowledge, information, and practice than halacha, right? Because on every halacha in Shas we have a machlokas, and we hold that both sides are correct. Elu ve'elu de'velukim chaim, but we only paskin like one. So therefore, halacha is almost arbitrary decision to follow one of the truths in that disagreement.
it's not arbitrary. We know that the principle we go according to the majority, right? So
But that too is an arbitrary thing. In other words, in the Rabbi Mahatos is except according to the Sefer HaChinuch is a specific halacha in the Sanhedrin
I would agree.
in the Beis Din.
okay.
We apply it and we say, okay, let's make halacha work that way as well, because it makes sense. But the Torah doesn't require us to use that. And if a person comes along and says, my Rebbe paskins differently, and his Rebbe is an authority, he's allowed to follow that authority.
I mean, that's only because now we don't have the smicha, we don't have
And
Sanhedrin.
yeah,
No.
how do we define authority at
So,
that
like-
point?
Right, we don't have. Right, for the past several thousand years, we haven't had Smichon Sanhedrin.
Right.
So therefore, there is no halachic Torah requirement to follow the majority.
Right.
Okay, so therefore, that we follow majority in paskening something, right? It's arbitrary because we have to know what to do. So therefore, we follow the majority. The Beis Yosef, as you all know, he said that he's going to pasken halacha based on 2 out of 3, right? The Rosh, the Rif, and the Rambam. So that this is a convenient way to deal with halacha when you don't know how to deal with it otherwise. But it doesn't mean that what the Rosh says is not emes, or that the Rambam says not emes. Our whole system of learning is based on the assumption that when we have a machlokas, both sides are emes. So the pattern of halacha is very different than what we consider to be emes in Torah. It's much more narrow, right? Emes is much more profound than a specific halacha which we perceive. Now, if you want to get a little bit more into that, emes is anything which a person comes up with based on Torah with a drive l'shem shamayim. In other words, emes by definition. I should say Toras emes. There's other types of emes as well, but Toras emes is any Torah which a person comes up with l'shem shamayim. And Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said, very interesting. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter is found in the Musar movement. Toras emes. He said that sometimes it's more significant if you come up with sheker, with false Torah. Because he said, I'm not making this up. He said, if you come up with emes, big deal. Whatever you said was taught already in Har Sinai. Everything which a Talmud is eventually going to come up with was taught to Moshe Rabbeinu in Har Sinai. But if you come up with a Gishmak sheker, that might be your unique chiddush, which nobody ever thought of before. So there's a Rosh Hashiva who said that. Rosh Hashiva said that between emes and yofe, in emes v'yatziv, there are, I think, 15 adjectives. And he said that means that emes may be very far from yofe, And Yafa may be very far from emes. Truth may be very far from beauty, and beauty very far from truth, but they're both values in Judaism. Right? All those things are values. So therefore you have people who specialized in pilpul, elaborate structures of thought, in which there was no way it was actually emes, but it was an extraordinary intellectual exercise, which in of itself has value. So, I don't know, I think I've answered the question with which we began, which is that we can't know always the difference between minhag and halacha. On the other hand, even though we can't know always the difference between minhag and halacha, so as I said, generally speaking, if you find something in a halachic work, you can assume it's halacha, but then also there's certain simanim in the Shulchan Aruch which are not meant for halacha. Like when to be open and above board, when you are about to get married, you'll find out that most of the halachos in Shulchan Aruch about intimate relations are not halachos. They're just suggestions. But the thing is, when you read them in Siman Reish Mem and Ohr Chaim, they seem like laws. And then your chassan teacher will tell you, yeah, but they're not really laws. They are just suggestions. So I don't want to get into details. They're not relevant, at least when time comes. But so their entire Siman and Shulchan Aruch, which are customs or suggestions, which is even less than customs. So it's a very, very difficult thing to tell. Again, the best thing to do is to have a teacher, a mentor, who you can discuss and ask, well, what about this halacha? Is this really a halacha, or is this just a minhag? It's not that there aren't, it's not gay. Borer is halacha, right? So selecting food on Shabbos is halacha, right? Kashrus, most of it is halacha, not minhag. I chose the minhag before, how much weight milk and meat. And there's certain things which anybody can tell. This is halacha, not minhag, right? But there are other cases in which it's not clear. And those are the ones which you need to consult or develop intuition on your own, right? Arrogant people like me, we think we can identify through our intuition what's halacha and what's minhag. If you're arrogant like me, you'll eventually come to that position as well. Okay? Overconfidence is actually, could be a good term for it too. But there is no hard and fast rule which I can give you in that respect. So, when it comes to the reason this came up is because the question is, what's a Baal Tshuva to do, right? It's a Baal Tshuva, we know Baal Tshuva is not subject to any specific set of Minhagim, right? They can adopt whatever Minhagim they want. They can even adopt halachic standards sometimes, which are different than other people, but that's more rare.
Why is it
By the way, which nusach you daven is also a minhag.
Why is it the majority of Jews that would disagree with this?
I don't think majority of Jews would disagree. They probably haven't thought about it.
Most people that I've asked are like, no, you have to stick to one thing and like that is it.
Really?
Yeah.
Silly.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
I mean, I'm aware.
Did I quote last time I was here? Did I quote George Bernard Shaw? George Bernard Shaw has a famous statement. He said, some people attribute it to Thomas Edison. Said 2% of the people think, 3% of the people think that they think, and 95% of the people would rather be caught dead than have to think. So, could be people you spoke to from the 95%. There is, if a person was on the derech, went off the derech, and then came back again, then they probably are bound by their previous minhag, right? Which is actually the actual definition of Baal Tshuva, right, in Halacha. What the people who come from not being observant to being observant, technically they're not Baalei Tshuva, even though we use the term for them, right? The way Rabbi Avraham Kaplan said we should call them Avraham Avinus, because they came from Avodah Zarah to Torah. But 6:15, right? 6:15 is
Yeah.
So Avodah Zarah to Torah, but
8 o'clock maybe. 8
all right. But a person who's what we call Baal Tshuva today is again does not have to take upon themselves specific minhagim. What probably B'dam people Kafschus who told you otherwise, they're probably thinking about your first issue, social acceptability. other words, they don't want people to go around being thought of as kuki bali tshuva, and therefore they should pick a specific approach so they're not sticking out like a sore thumb. Yeah.
But even more so, if you don't know
I've
what's...
tried phrasing it like that, though.
if you
What?
don't-
I've tried phrasing it like that. I'm like, maybe this is what you're thinking of. Like, no, this
It didn't
is
work.
Halacha. I think,
So we have two things that I think might be contradictory. So he said we can, Bali Tshuva can choose whatever Minhagim they like. And on the other hand, we don't really know what's Minhag and what's Halacha, so you have to follow a consistent authority on the matter. These are contradictory
No,
statements.
I don't think they're contradictory.
Because a singular authority on the matter, which will basically tell you one set of minhagim that go to the whole package together with halacha, right?
Right, so you can poll several people.
Wait, can I?
No, but I'm saying, but then you don't know what's minhag and what's halacha. You have to rely on one guy to tell you what's what.
Right.
I have to
Yep.
ask.
Yeah.
With Minhagim that differentiate like big groups, like for example, Koribal Tshuva, not daven slichos, eat kidneys on Pesach, and eat milk and chicken.
Milk and chicken is that's halacha.
Oh,
Everybody's
wait, no,
going
sorry, not
What do you mean to say could about tshuva, not say slichas during Elul, eat kidneys on Pesach, and wait between meat and milk 3 hours?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes. Now, what are the social consequences?
That's a separate thing. You seem to be more of an expert on them than I am.
Ouch.
Oh, okay, I'm going to stop because people, you want to go to supper?
No, I'm good.
It's 6:30 anyway.
What?
I was told 6:15. Yeah.
I can totally skip supper today.
Okay, well, so the shiur is over. Anybody wants to stay, that's your personal preference.
Hey, by the way, can I get this shiur?
So you're going to be on YouTube?
It's on YouTube?
Not yet.
Woo!
Yeah. Okay.
I am
So Rabbi,
very
what's-
happy right now.
like,
Yeah.
do you see my question?
Yes, but you're right. There is a certain it's not contradiction, it's a paradox. Judaism we don't like contradictions, but we love paradoxes. Okay? So that
Word I'm looking for is kasha.
What?
Kasha.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
yeah. That's good.
Isn't existence
So,
itself kind of a paradox?
Everything in this world is a paradox. That's intrinsic in having duality is paradox.
Right. So
Right?
but,
World was created with base, with the letter base. Gracious. Letter base. It's two, right? Duality. That means everything has two sides. Everything has a paradox.
But when you say everything has two sides, that itself.
Right. That itself is a paradox. Yeah, very good. Yes.
So let's say
There are several ways. So the best way to do it is to do your own independent analysis. If there's an issue which you have a minhag, so let's say you became Baal Tshuva yesterday. So you say, you know what, Rebbeinu Shalom, what I'm about to do, I'm doing all of it bli neder. Until I research what people say, and I come to a logical conclusion on my own. That might take years. But if you stipulate ahead of time that we're doing bli neder, so then that doesn't establish a pattern.
that kind of
But it
sounds.
Okay.
Please, let's go.
Okay, that would be optimal. Okay, so the next level is to decide I'm going to have a Rav or a couple. You don't have to have one Rav, but a couple of Rabbanim who I'm going to ask, and I'm going to discuss it with them. And if there's a question between the two of them, they don't agree, so then either I'll try and get them reconciled, or as it says, Shnei Ksuvim Machishim Zeh Zeh, Yoba Kosav Ashlishi V'Achriya B'Neim. I consult the third one,
But-
right?
So basically, you're saying like either you have to rely on your own logic or you defer to a Rav's logic.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, but I mean, isn't Masorah in this matter more stronger than logic in a sense?
We don't have them. If you're Baal Tshuva, we don't have Masorah.
I'm saying a Masorah of a Rav, for example.
Why should you adopt the Masorah of that Rav? If you got to went to Rav, I just say because a different Masorah than if you went to Shlomo Zalman Auerbach.
I'm just saying the choice process requires logic also.
Yeah, so it all comes back to Yerushalmi in Sanhedrin, I think it is, and which the Ritva brings down in Eruvin, where it says that when Kodesh Baruch Hu gave The Torah he gave to Moshe Rabbeinu on everything, 49 ways to say Tameh, 49 ways to say Tor, 49 ways to say Osir, 49 ways to say Mutter, 49 ways to say Chai, 49 ways to say Potter, and all those 98 ways are valid, right? So the question, so Moshe Rabbeinu said, how's anybody ever going to know what to do? So he said it's given to the Chacham of the generation to determine what's true.
Well, that's when we had real Chacham.
Right. So today, most of those things have been resolved.
Yes.
Okay, the halachic issues have been resolved.
Oh.
In other words, we have yeah, but Minhagim are still Minhagim are still up in the air. Since there's so many Minhagim, all valid, so either research them on your own, or you could have a mentor who helps you out with it. Shiur that you can't, for us, you can't go back before Shulchan Aruch. The Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz, the Tumim says that we have Halachos and Chumros that you can say kimli. In other words, if 99 people say that I would have to pay, and one person says I wouldn't have to pay, he's a legitimate authority, I can say I hold like that authority. Because it's the principle of Motzu Chaver Lav Araya, if you want to take money away from you have to prove definitively that that's the case, and it's not definitive as long as there's one opinion. Even a minority of 100 to 1, which holds my way. But Yonasan says that that's only an opinion which appears in Shulchan Aruch or one of the Nosei Kalim, one of the immediate commentators on the Shulchan Aruch.
I can't say Kimni like the Ramban.
You can't say, according to Yonasan Eibshitz, you can't say Kalim like the Rambam anymore. Because once Am Yisrael accepted Shulchan Aruch, that is baseline.
I mean, you could argue against it, like there are Temanim who never apply.
Right, they wouldn't apply to the Teimanim.
But I'm saying if there's those one.
For those who
one
accept the
group, you
Shulchan
would
Aruch.
say that it could
Yeah,
be
but no. For those who accept the Shulchan Aruch begins
Isn't
boundary.
that the point you just tried to make, though? That is
Right.
one group.
That's what I'm saying. If a group exists.
Yeah, if you join the Teimani Beit Din, they can actually accept the Rambam's position. But in any other Beit Din in the world, they can't.
No, but you're saying for like if there's such if a halachic perspective is still extant, as a Baal Tshuva, you can adopt it, right?
Not before the Shulchan Aruch, that's what I'm saying. Unless you join the Teimani.
So
No, this I don't understand this. Like we just said that if a halachic perspective is extant,
Yes,
right, then it can be adopted.
right.
So the
Oh, I'm talking about, wait a minute, I'm talking about Chutz Mishpat right now. I'm talking about in a court case. Yes, in theory, if you want to go and take a Teimani Minhag, you can take a Teimani Minhag.
Because I've seen, like, I've spoken to
Only
people
in a
who
court case?
who do
In a
everything
court case, you
wrong.
can't. In a court case, no basin other than a Teimani basin, and I don't think them anymore either. After they become more assimilated with the rest of the so could accept an opinion which went against Paskin Halacha and Shulchan Aruch. Okay, even if, but that's talking about specifically Choshen Mishpat. Okay. Okay.